Hello and welcome to Crucible of Worlds for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're playing a deck that I love quite a lot, which is Monowhite Painter. I have this foiled up in paper and it's one of the decks I play quite regularly on the channel because I always like to sort of tune the build and see what we can do with it. We play some weird and wonderful builds, but today we're playing the more sort of stock plumber list. And if you're not familiar with this deck, we're basically trying to assemble Painter's Servant and Grindstone. With these in play, an activation of Grindstone mills your opponent's entire deck because all the colours in their deck are the same. All the cards in their deck, sorry, are the same colour. So that's basically what we're trying to assemble. In order to do that, we have an Oswald Fiddlebender. We've got 4 of these. These let us tutor into our various combo pieces, as well as a few singleton like silver bullets that we'll talk about in a sec. Then we have these 4 as a Saga, which can tutor for the Grindstone, as well as providing a good beatdown plan. Alongside this, we have Ingenious Smith, which digs us into our deck. This little creature can dig 4 cards deep to go and find us an artifact, and it can also present a threat in and of itself by playing an artifact every turn and growing it. We've got a few of the things you'd expect to see, things like Ethersworn Canonist, which is usually what the red-white decks are splashing white for the most part, is like this and a Lightning Tutor usually. We've got Esper Sentinel as a way of getting a little bit of card advantage and taxing our opponent to slow the game down so we can assemble our combo. We've got Mother of Runes to protect our Painter's Servant or whatever else we're doing. And the rest of it is more or less like singletons and bits and pieces. So this build has got 2 Aether Vial. Now our builds tend to run 1 or 3 usually, but we're going to go for 2 today and see how it feels. The reason for this is Aether Vial wasn't very strong in the meta right now. Like in a more control-y meta, you'd want 3 Aether Vials, and in some metas you'd only want 1 to tutor for with your Urza Saga to give yourself that little hit of mana and the uncounterable. But we're going to have 2 this time because we've got room for 2. We've got a Crucible of Worlds, which, as you've probably guessed, is like my favourite Magic card. So we're obviously going to have this, but it's a very good thing to top your curve out with because we've got a bunch of lands that we want to reuse. Whether that's the Horizon Canopy, the Urza Saga, or the Wasteland, any of those can completely take over a game if you're reusing them repeatedly. And we have an Ensnaring Bridge, which has sort of been in and out of the deck for a while, but a main deck Ensnaring Bridge looks pretty good in the meta, filled with all these initiative guys right now. So the other singletons we've got here, well, the Portable Hull we've got 2 of, so it's not quite a singleton, but it's mostly there for fetching up with Oswald, but sometimes you'll draw it and it'll be good. It's a main deck answer to things like Collector Roof as well. We have 1 Swords to Plowshare, which is just like a 3rd piece of removal to go along with these 2. We had the space here and it meant that our sideboard was a bit cleaner by having this in the main deck. And then we've got Mox Opal, Soul Guide Lantern, Shadowspear, Pithing Needle, and Hope of Ghirapur. Some of these are pretty obvious, some of them less so. Hope of Ghirapur can force through your combo, so you can attack with it, get the trigger off, get the ability off of it, so your opponent can't cast spells, and then you can just combo away to your heart's content. It's also an evasive creature to get back the initiative. It comes on off of the Urza Saga. It's a legend, so you can bounce it with the Karakas we have, so you can sort of set up a block, a bounce sort of line repeatedly. Pithing Needle speaks for itself, as with the Shadowspear and as a Saga deck. Same with Soul Guide Lantern. Mox Opal is because sometimes you want your Urza Saga to become a mana source again, rather than just losing the mana source entirely, so the Mox Opal is for that. And that's pretty much it. We've got the full 4 Ancient Dens because we're playing the Ingenious Smith, and obviously these are very good things to use with the Oswald, because we can go and get any of these, or our Esper Sentinels, or our Grindstones. So they're pretty potent. We've got a decent array of basics, so we're not completely cold to Wasteland either. Sideboard-wise, we're quite dedicated on our slots. 4 for fast combo decks that use their graveyard. It's quite obvious which ones those are. Reanimator, Oops, etc, etc. A couple of Deafening Silence to complement the 3 Ethersworn Canonist in the main. These are to slow down combo decks. Obviously, Canonist is good against Elves, whereas Silence isn't. 3 Swords to Plowshares to round out the full playset in the 75, because we're going to need to kill some creatures from time to time. March for Otherworldly Light, we've got a couple of these. They're a good flexible answer for lots of troublesome permanents like artifacts and enchantments. And then we have these 4 Hushbringers, which is because initiative is all over the place right now. And it's also pretty good against things like Elves and Doomsday as well. So it's just another layer of protection for several decks that can give us the time to go off. Now, obviously, this doesn't play particularly well with Ingenious Smith, but it's going to hit our opponent a lot more than it's going to hit us when we do board it in, and quite often we'll be boarding it out for the Ingenious Smith, depending on the matchup. All right, I think that's enough. So before we jump into a league, let me just say, likes, comments, subscribes, they cost you nothing, and they really help me out and support my channel. I'm trying to get over 1,000 subscribers so I can get monetized, and the last 2 weeks I think I've put on 100 subscribers, so we're doing all right. If we can just keep that pace up, we should be We should be looking monetized by end of February-ish, so maybe we can do it a bit quicker with your help. So yeah, keep liking my stuff, keep watching my content, it all helps. All right, let's jump into a league with Monowhite Painter. We're on the play for game 1. We have a turn 3 combo if we want it, or we can do it a bit slower and try and grind out a Crucible of Worlds game. This seems like a pretty good keep to me. I've played against this opponent a few times. They normally play some pretty interesting things. So I'm not entirely sure what to expect and whether we should be leading on the Sentinel or the Saga. We'll see how low they mulligan. So we have quite an important decision point on turn 1 here. Whether we play the Saga so we can just do a turn 3 combo with Painted Servant, or if we play the Sentinel and try and restrict our opponent's resources that way. Difficult to say. I think we're going to lead out on the Saga here. Because we got the Crucible of Worlds, we can rebuy this anyway, so it's not too bad in terms of what we're losing to the triggers on this. So if we don't get full value out of this, it doesn't matter because we're hoping to rebuy it. Our opponent is a fan of the channel. Our opponent's just played their own as a Saga. Okay. And a Shadowspear. And a Crow Mox. Okay. What are they putting in off their Mox? Duress. And they're casting a Duress. Okay. So we're losing our Crucible of Worlds here. Our opponent is looking like they might be with the mono black Saga Storm deck that Tony Scapone has been putting up some reasonable numbers with. Again, I could be wrong on that one, but we'll see. We're going to play this, and we're going to name black because our opponent can play Snuff Out. So let's see what we get here. So we get our Saga before they get theirs, so they can't get a Pithing Needle to stop us. Ancient Tomb. Which does feel like the combo deck, but they've just sort of got a weird draw, perhaps. Mistress Bauble. Yep, this feeds into what I was expecting it to possibly be. Also means that playing out the Servant is a bit safer, because these decks tend to have more hand disruption than anything else because they're trying to win. Okay, I know what our opponent's playing. This can go and get them a Pithing Needle if they need it. They have 1 card in hand. Okay, so they're Baubling us now. Float to mana. Grindstone. Play this. We will try to Grindstone our opponent. Okay, we get to see their graveyard here. So they are very much on the Tony Scapone list. Is there anything unusual in here? Not particularly. It's hard to see because they're all black now. So they got the Burning Wish. Yeah, this does look like the Tony Scapone list. Alright, cool. So, the Leyline of the Void here isn't amazing. The Deafening Silence, on the other hand, is very good. The March of the Lordly Lights are pretty tasty here. Because they sometimes play out artifacts like you saw, so we can scoot them up this way. The Ensnaring Bridge is probably going to be something we're not reaching for. We want the Pithing Needle for the purposes of naming Wishclaw Talisman. The Hope of Ghirapur can buy us a turn because it's until your next turn they can't cast non-creature spells, so that's basically a time walk if we need it. The Mother of Runes is going to be relatively bad here, I would imagine. They might have some removal spells. The Aether Vial is not going to do anything in this matchup. We possibly don't have enough time to be messing around with Crucible of Worlds. But if we can keep our opponent's resources down, that would be relatively nice. Probably just a Mother of Runes here, or the Plow. Now, the only problem with removing a Plow is that our opponent is an Urza Saga deck. So I don't hate having access to a Plow. But if we've got 2 March for the Lordly Light, 2 Portable Holes, is that enough? Maybe we're looking at taking out a Plow and a Mother, and we can put in the Ensnaring Bridge, so we've got an option to tutor for if our opponent is going down the route of Sagaing us. The Leylines aren't particularly useful in this. They're not like a Past in Flames deck or anything. It can shut off Cabal Rituals, but I don't think that's worth a slot here. We don't mind this one because it cantrips. This could be a Mother of Runes or a Plow instead, but I think we're just best off submitting as is. I suspect I will lose this game on the draw. Okay, so we have 2 very good cards in the matchup. We have to get through a turn 1 Duress to deploy them though. Alternatively, our opponent might be able to combo off on turn 1, although this deck tends to be slower than things like the Epic Gamble. Vault of Whispers into Haywire Might. Sure. That's a nice piece of tech. So they can fire this off whenever they want. Pretty cool. So we're not going to cast our Deafening Silence here. This will at least force our opponent to use their Haywire Might, which is also take them off of Mox Opal for a turn at least. Okay, so they've got an Urza Saga here. They are going to be ahead of the Urza Saga game because they've got more artifacts in their deck, and they're also lower to the ground artifacts because they're all like 0 drops. Okay, so we need to start deploying our own Urza Sagas here. So we've kind of got the storm side of things covered right now. So our plan now is to deploy a bunch of Urza Saga tokens and see if we can trade with our opponent's Urza Saga tokens. Now what they can do off the last Urza Saga is get a Pithing Needle, which will shut down the 2 Urza Sagas in our hand. We can still tutor with them, but they're not going to be particularly exciting after that point. They're not going to be able to make us constructs if that's the route they go. But if that's the route they go, then we only have to deal with the 2 face-up Saga tokens. Now they can get pretty big pretty quick. They might just stick a Shadowspear on it and crash. Saga's ticked up to 2 for them. They got 4 cards in hand. Another Saga. Okay, so this means they're very unlikely to Pithing Needle, so maybe we're supposed to be Pithing Needling now. I guess we get to see what comes out of their Saga first. Okay, they're making their construct now. And they're using this to blow up our Saga. Sure. So we can either play out a Canonist here or the Sentinel. Like we've got the Storm side covered so much here that I think I'm just going to play out the Sentinel here. Just because we might be able to get a free card off of it. And we are kind of in the mood for drawing something here because we are behind on the Urza Saga train by some margin here. Even though that's the less mana efficient play. So what are they going to get with this? I assume it's just going to be Shadowspear and we're just going to end up in a race here. And we're going to lose. But if we draw ourselves the bridge that we left in, then we are doing alright. Now they can go get more Haywire Mites off of the Saga. Could certainly be a thing they can do. But they have a choice of whether they make another construct or they put the Shadowspear on this turn. I think the best play for them is to make a construct here and just keep throwing power out and seeing what they can do with it. Yep, so it's going to come in for 5. We're going to take 5, go down to 14. And what do we have here? So we're going to play out our Ancient Den. So how big will our guy be? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not as large as theirs, is it? But we don't really have a better option here. So we've got to make this and soak up as much damage, and we're trying to draw into Painter's Servant or the Bridge, or we can possibly buy a turn with an Oswald. If we can buy a turn with an Oswald, we can cycle our Canonist into a Bridge. Yeah, so here comes another one of the lads. So this is going to be 6. They're going to untap, make another one. They're going to go 7. They're going to tutor. They're going to be 8/8s. So they're going to be attacking us with 3 8/8s this turn, which is a bit of a problem for us here. Pithing Needle. Okay, so this could go on Saga now. So we should have made the token in response to the trigger. Yeah, so they just named a Saga. So we've kind of got stuffed a bit there. So we have to block 2 of these with our 2 guys. I don't think we can... The only thing we can draw here is Bridge. So yeah, we should have a Saga token to block with here, but we made a little misstep of just letting them resolve their Saga. Are they going to pay for this Chrome Mox? I imagine they will, because this is the only spell they get to cast this turn. Unless they cast an artifact creature. Yep, so we don't have a choice. We've got to send 2 lads under the bus. So now I can cast more spells if they want to. But I doubt they need to. What have we got here? An Oswald. We don't have anything good on the Saga, although we can cycle the Relic here. Is what we can do. So this gives us a redraw for the Bridge, because we haven't made a land drop yet. Okay, we missed it. Sure. Okay, making our little Saga token would have made a difference then, but it would have been a cleaner play. So now you sort of see the power of this deck, where they can just play a really strong Saga game sometimes. Now the question is, do we want to try and rectify that Saga plan that they're playing? So we could swap some Mother of Runes for Plows here, because the Mothers aren't really doing that much. We could swap out something like a Soul Guide Lantern for another Plow, just to make us a little bit safer against the Saga plan. Sure, we'll do this. Alright. This hand can kill relatively quickly. It's not very insulated against the Storm plan is the problem. I think we keep it. I tend to be slower on the Storm front if that's the way they're going. So maybe we'll be alright. The Fiddlebender can go and find a Canonist if we draw a 1-drop. Our opponent kept a 6-card hand. Play this out. We can plow something if we need to. I doubt we're going to have a plow on turn 1 here. Okay. This is bad for us. We want our opponent to start on the Urza Saga. This could just be a combo turn. We might never really get to play the game. A Haywire Might and a Thoughtseize. Do I want to plow this Haywire Might is the question. Because this can hit our Ancient Dens. I think because they can take the bridge, we have to let them Thoughtseize us here. If they take the bridge, then we kind of have to hold our plow up for a turn where our opponent makes the Saga's constructs. Whereas if they don't take the bridge, then we can plow this to take them off of Metalcraft and preserve the life of our Ancient Den. They might just take the Painter's Servant or the Oswald though. They took the Oswald, sure. So in their end step, I'm going to plow this Haywire Might. It's going to be a couple of turns before we have to worry about Saga tokens anyway, because they didn't lead out in Saga. Okay, so we just straight up drew an Oswald Fiddlebender, so let's chuck that into play. This can go and get us a Canonist. If we get a 1-drop artifact, it can get us all sorts of things. A Grindstone, you say? Can't get us mana, unfortunately. This can get us a 1-drop that we don't need. We just need mana now to win the game. Let's play this guy out in black. Our opponent could be running something like an opposition agent. So I think we want to keep our Oswald back, just in case. Okay. There's a plow that we didn't particularly want. We play out this Grindstone. So next turn, if we draw a land, we can win. Would I like to... I think I will trade my Fiddlebender for an opposition agent now. If they have one. Because it'll also be for the Lotus Petal. So maybe that would have been worth doing last turn as well. I don't know if these decks do run opposition agent, to be fair. We have a plow. Just need a land here. Did not hit a land. Okay, now we've got two Painted Servants. We can attack with both. We want to reduce our opponent's life totals so they can't ad nauseum. We don't actually have any 3-drops to turn our Painted Servant into. So we have a choice here of if we play the Painted Servant or we hold up the plow. But I think we might as well just hold up the plow here in case they've got some sort of big haymaker to blow up all of our artifacts. Seems unlikely, but it's certainly possible. Haywire Might. Sure. Shadowspear. They probably blow this up, the Grindstone up now. Or in our upkeep before we at least have a chance to play a 3rd mana source. Okay. This can only hit non-creatures, by the way. We're going to do that in their turn. Yeah, they should have hit our Grindstone before. Yeah, you sometimes find that with new cards with the Haywire Mites and stuff like this. People make little mistakes there. So it happens, and that's how you learn, and that's how you get better. So there's no problem ever doing that. Right, we're into round 2 now. We are on the play. Yeah, sometimes you have 1, 2, 3, so we'll keep it. Grindstone, Painter, kill them. I'll take those, and we can get back into the game with these later on. Now our opponent is mulliganing, which could be good for us, could be bad. Okay, they've gone to 5. That's probably bad for us. That probably means that they're a deck that can win with very few resources, as a general rule. Now, they could just be unlucky. But for the most part, now they've got the newest mulligan rule that's not even remotely new anymore. Alright, sorry. Let's get into this game. Let's play this Grindstone. So we have a 1, 2, 3 curve, and if they like duress away our... not duress, like Thoughtseize away our Painted Servant or something, we have the ability to Ingenious Smith to dig, or Oswald. Okay, and there's a Saga. Painted Servant. I think we name black for the purposes of Snuff Out, just in case it's... There's so many Snuff Outs in the meta right now. I think it's worth doing that. And if they like grief us, we don't really care too much about it. So we don't know which Urza Saga deck our opponent is playing right now. Okay, we still don't know. Oh, wowzers. Okay, we now know which Urza Saga deck our opponent is playing. Okay, so our opponent's going to Pyroblast our Grindstone here. Sure. Alrighty. We now know what's going on. So, what does that mean for us? We shouldn't have played that land out first, I don't think. Right, let me play this guy out. Get Ingenious Smith going. Let's have a look. We have a Grindstone. We can play out a Grindstone here. It does play into a Pyroblast, but that's something we're going to have to play into at some point anyway by having it on board. We're never going to be able to get around that. Sure. This will pump our Ingenious Smith. And here we go. Two painters painting away at one another. Sure. So this gets a Grindstone for our opponent, and then they kill us. As long as they see that, I suspect they will. Sure, we're dead. We didn't really have any other plays there, unfortunately. So, all right. Fortunately, this matchup is actually pretty good for the old white player because we can attack their Urza Saga, which is the best card in both of our decks. We have the ability to disrupt that quite effectively. So a lot of our cards have text on them that is pretty useful. So all of these cards have text on them that's good. So Pithing Needle is something we're into. We play the fair game pretty well because we have like Ingenious Smiths and we have this Wasteland package and stuff like that. So Mother of Runes is going to be pretty useful here. Esper Sentinel is fine. Aether Vials I don't think are necessary for what we're doing here. The Hope of Ghirapur can let us play around their Pyroblasts. This is not an Ensnaring Bridge matchup. I think we have the better tokens game here, so we're just better in combat. Our Canonists are fine, but not great. I don't think we do want Hushbringers here. And probably don't... Do we want the Leylines is the question. Not sure we want Canonists. We do want Crucibles, because if we can just Wasteland lock our opponent, that's usually lethal. It takes a little while sometimes, but it'll get there. So currently this is our configuration. Do we want an additional Leyline of the Void in there perhaps? I don't think we do. I'm not even sure if we want the one we have there, if we've got the Soul Guide Lantern. I think we just want another Canonist for the purposes of having more 2-drops that can go into Crucible of Worlds to assemble that lock. We'll keep this. So we can board out some of our Painter stuff as well. It's certainly an option we have. But we are going to play the Esper Sentinel Mana Denial strategy for a few turns and then see where we end up. We can kill their creatures. We can kill their lands. Like we beat Urza's Saga quite handily because we got Wasteland. The March of Otherworldly Light also blows up Wastelands, which is blows up Urza's Saga, sorry, which is really important. This is why I prefer the white version in this particular matchup. So we have a choice here. We can Wasteland away their Ancient Tomb, or we can hold up Plow and play a Grindstone. I think we are in the Wasteland department here because of our Esper Sentinel is going to get us a lot of value. So we can play our Grindstone, so our opponent can't play a Painter and try and leverage it for blasts unless they have the red mana right there, and they have to then use it immediately on the Grindstone. So this should put us in a reasonable position. Now, the Ancient Tomb could have been a bait to protect their Urza Saga. A Welder, sure. We don't care about that. We can kill this. Welders have to die on sight. If you are not familiar with Legacy, that's very much what has to happen. We will hit this one. We'll attack our opponent. Can our opponent... I think our opponent probably can deploy enough things to kill us. They only need 4 mana. So they could have an Ancient Tomb, a Grindstone and a thingy. So I don't think it's worth us playing the Painted Servant out just yet. We could have played the Mox Opal and then followed up with Painted Servant. Portable Hole. Okay. I think we cast our Portable Hole. Play our Eiganjo. Go to attacks. So we can play out a Painter now and try and win that way, but if we draw another land, then we get to just play out our Painter and kill them in the same turn. Now they can have Lightning Bolt in their deck as well. There's the land we wanted. There's the Mox Opal we wanted. And tap this first. Play this guy out. And then white. So they have potentially Lightning Bolt up, so we can't play into the Lightning Bolt here. So we can force our opponent to just not spend their mana. If they ever tap their red mana down, we can Grindstone them out. So if we play an Ancient Tomb, they can start activating there as a Saga and holding up red. And then we have to ask ourselves, what is the spot we're trying to get ourselves into where we pop this Grindstone? A Fury, an Evoked Fury. Interesting. Let's see where they put the damages. I assume it's going to be 3 and 1 because that makes the most sense. Sure. So we will target this. So our opponent is probably going to Lightning Bolt our opponent's Servant. But we have to go for it and make them have it here. Yep. We're going to draw a card with the Esper Sentinel. This also stops our opponent from being able to do anything with their Saga this turn. Sure. So we got 3 cards for 2 here. We will mill some of their cards. Torpor Orb, interesting. And we're unfortunately going to lose this, but we at least got the card out of it on the way out. Let's play our Ingenious Smith. We've got Painted Servant. So we have lethal next turn. We don't really want to do it right now, because if our opponent goes and gets the Grindstone with their Urza Saga, they kill us. So we need to be able to activate where the next person taking a draw step is our opponent. Now this can go and get a Pithing Needle to stop us being able to Grindstone them. Yeah, that looks like what's happening. Now we have Much for the Worldly Light in our deck. We have... So they can weld in and out their own Pithing Needle when they have the chance to win as well. But we have Much for the Worldly Light. We have another Portable Hole. We have an Oswald which can find the other Portable Hole. So we've definitely got outs to this to try and win with our combo. And a Braid on our little guy. Sure. Back over to us. A Mother of Runes. This is worth casting. Now, we can cast our Painter's Servant, but then our opponent might be able to weld out their needle. I don't think it's worth playing out the Servant just yet. Once the Mother of Runes untaps, we can keep our guy alive quite nicely here. Fable Mirror Breaker. Yeah, there it is. Sure. So this card is a very strong one. It's going to certainly tilt the dimensions of this matchup right now. We have this Ancient Den. Are we going to play this Ancient Den out? I think so. So if we play out the Painter's Servant now, I don't think that's where we want to be. It can roadblock this guy though. They have 2 cards in hand. They need to deploy a welder first, but we don't have an answer for a welder. I think we have to just let them attack us with the Goblin Shaman token here. It's a shame, because we can't really afford to put the Painter's Servant into play now, because if they play a welder, sure, it doesn't do anything immediately, but they probably get to untap with it because we don't have any removal in hand right now. And then they can just start weldering their needle out for whatever. And then we're in trouble. So we kind of need a nice draw here. This is going to hit us for 2. And they're going to get themselves a nice little treasure to go with it. A Goblin Engineer. So this is exactly a situation that made it so I didn't play out the Grindstone. Not the Grindstone, the Painter's Servant. Now our opponent has a Portal to Phyrexia, which is an interesting one. So this, when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures, and then you get to raise dead. You get to reanimate creatures from a graveyard each turn. Phyrexian Dragon Engine. So this is just going to be the loop they set up to keep drawing 3 extra cards a turn, which is a lot, as I'm sure you've worked out. So we are behind in this game now. Portable Hole. Okay, so we've drawn a card that lets us win the game, potentially. So if they have an Abrade, they might fire it off now on our Grindstone. We don't really have a way to play around the Grindstone here. No, sorry, we don't have a way to play around the Abrade here. Tap this for white. This guy into play. Sure. So for the next game, because we've seen the Dragon Engine and stuff, we are going to board in the Leylines here. And what we're going to do is we're going to board down on our combo pieces. So we want to get rid of Grindstones, we want to get rid of these Painters. So we're looking at these, and potentially one more card. Tricky. Maybe it is just keeping 2 Painters in. Previous builds of this deck have had an additional March by the Worldly Light that I'd normally have in this slot. But I think we are probably okay with this. Some sort of currency converter would be quite nice in this current setup, just to get rid of Leylines later on. Now we could always have a bridge instead of a Painter's Servant in case things go wrong for us. But we've already seen that our opponent's got a Braid, but we have so many targets we can definitely overload in a Braid. Or do we want this Canonist just as another thing that can go up into Crucible of Worlds, because that's probably our best way of winning these games. That I like. Although I guess Painter's Servant does the same and can win us the game. So maybe we are playing the Painter's Servant out after all. Our hand is very much on the slow side here. I think we're supposed to mulligan this. 3 Oswalds is too many. Now, they might just like kill them on site over and over again, which I don't hate. Maybe we'll keep this. That's so sketchy keeping the triple Oswald hand though. It means it's definitely going to stick. And we should be able to leverage that into a win usually. Go on then, we'll keep it. We get to shut down their graveyard plan, so their fair plan is kaput. Because they can't just keep looping the Dragon Engine or doing something really broken with the Portal to Phyrexia type stuff. And we shut off their welders here. Sure. The welders can still hit our stuff, which is important to note. Okay, that was a pretty good draw. So next turn we can either play the Saga into the Smith or the Plains into the Smith. We can play the Fiddlebender, but I think we might be better off. Well, the Fiddlebender is probably going to be a good bait spell for a Lightning Bolt. If that's what we're doing, if we're playing out the Fiddlebender now, I think we want to play off of a plains so that we can get max value off the Saga when the time comes. I suspect this is going to get bolted or furied pretty sharpish. Or abraded. Yeah, there you go. Sure. 1 down. 2 to go. Now, if our opponent has the combo in and just goes for it, they can beat us, and there's not much we can do about it just yet. But Fiddlebender will find us a Pithing Needle later on. Fade the Mirror Breaker. Sure. That's one of their best cards in the matchup. Here we go. Get in the red zone with the Welder. So we'll pop their exile pile out so we can see what they've drawn. This Karakas doesn't do exactly what we want here. I think we're probably playing out the Smith. I think we play out the Smith here. Let's see what we find off of it. Then we have most information to work with. Esper Sentinel. Yeah, I'll play that out now. So the aim of the game now is to make the biggest Ingenious Smith we can. So next turn we can play the Saga out. The Saga also represents our ability to make a combo, because we can Fiddlebender this into a painter, and this Saga itself can find us the Grindstone. So we can always give that a whirl. How many cards is our opponent going to discard here? No cards. That's worrying. That suggests our opponent's hand is exactly where they want it to be. Yikes. So this could be Painter Grindstone. Although that does leave them potentially vulnerable to a Grindstone on our turn. So we'll see. I don't really want to trade my Smith for this because it's going to outgrow it very easily. Our opponent could be just trying to get to Hardcast Fury, which is a very strong play. They could have a Spirit Guide and do it right now, in fact. Okay. This might just be for the purposes of blowing things up with Pyroblast, but we'll see. We'll see what we end up with here. So I think step 1 for us is probably casting this Portable Hole. I don't think we can allow this Painter's Servant to stick around on the board. So this grows our Ingenious Smith. Get rid of the Painter's Servant. White and red. Pyroblast on our Ingenious Smith. Interesting. And they're going to pay for the Sentinel, which is what the white mana's for. So we still get rid of the Painter's Servant. Then what we get to do here is start taking this up to get a Grindstone. And then we can Fiddlebender ourselves. We possibly should have left white open there, really. So what our plan now is we can, when the time comes, we can Fiddlebender our hole out for a painter. So there's 2 painters on board. So the Welder, I guess the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki then can just grow the Welder. Can just make up more Welders, actually. So be able to welder both of the things out if there's enough artifacts around. But we will have our Portable Hole in the bin if we do that play. Favor Mirror Breaker. They're going to crack their treasure token to stop us drawing a card. I imagine they will. Yeah, sure. Okay. Here comes another one of these little guys. If they get 2 of these, you can make 1 copy of the other one. And then for each mana you have, you get a 2/2 to attack with, as long as you make them in the end step. Pithing Needle. Okay, that's a pretty good one. But I'm not sure we cast it just yet. I think we're actually on the save the Pithing Needle for the Goblin Welder. So how much mana will we need? We need 1 mana for this guy to float this one out. And then we need 3 mana to make the Grindstone activation. And then 1 mana for the Pithing Needle. So we have enough mana to do this play. Now our opponent's going to get to do some Kiki-Jiki shenanigans. But we get to go off next turn, which is probably just about enough. So we're going to have to, if we name Goblin Welder before we start cycling these away, then I think we're in a good spot. So let's see how many cards I discard this time. Now I do possibly get access to Pyroblast here when we shuffle away the Portable Hole. Okay, so discarded another Fable and a Saga. So they got 2 new cards of some description. So this isn't something they've been sculpting towards, because these are just 2 fresh draws for them. So this time we make a 1, 2, 3 power guy. But we don't make the next as a Saga token here. If they send something in, we have a guy that's big enough to block. So it's a good spot to be in. Tap a couple of planes down, make ourselves a 3/3. Block this. We'll take 2 here. But our opponent could cast a Hardcaster Fury, which definitely interacts with how we're hoping to do our Fiddlebender shenanigans. Okay, it didn't do that. Interesting. We're going to draw here. That's not really that useful for us. So we can try and eke out a fair game, or we can try and win right now with 2 painters on the board. That's got to be pretty good, right? Let's get this Grindstone into play. And then we will cast Pithing Needle with our colourless mana floating. Okay, our opponent said GG's well played. So I assume that means they know how we're going to be winning this game with the portable hull. Will you put on YouTube? So then we do this. This guy will sacrifice this portable hull. Let's get us a Painted Servant that can name white. Now the only way we lose here is if our opponent has 2 Pyroblasts. They already said GG's, they say. They'd have to Pyroblast both painters. We're not in a great spot if they do that, to be honest, but I guess we could have done this on our opponent's upkeep, but they've already said GG's well played, so I'm just running through it now. Blasting our Karakas. They only have the one by the looks of it, I guess. Right, so we managed to get that one. That was an interesting one with a little bit of back and forth going on. But we came away victorious. I do like the white one in the red-white mirror, but we didn't really showcase why so much, to be honest. Like, we did shut off their graveyard quite nicely, but the usual reason I like this is because you get to Wasteland them and much otherwise like their things, and the Crucible lock is usually game over. But this was also fine, so let's go into the third round. We are 2-0. We're on the play. We can do a weird selection of plays. So we can go turn 1, Wasteland, Hope of Ghirapur. Turn 2, Wasteland, Painted Servant, Mox Opal, Portable Hull. I don't know. This hand just seems weird to me. No, I think we're going to mulligan this one. Like, it is playable, but I don't really like just opening up the let's play Wastelands and hope they get us there. I think we need a reliable source of white mana to play our deck. And this is a much nicer hand. And keep this. Now we have to get rid of one of these cards. I quite like to keep the removal spell. Are we getting rid of a land here? Probably getting rid of the... We want to keep the Ingenious Smith in case something goes wrong. We want to keep the Painted Servant because that's the harder part of the combo to get rid of. We want to keep our basic planes. So we're probably looking at one of these 3 cards. Now the Saga and the Grindstone both effectively the combo. This one can get Wastelanded though. This one can't. We probably want to keep 3 mana because that's how much we win the game with. We want to keep the Painter because that's a hard one. So it's a tricky one to decide what to bin off here actually. I'm inclined to bin off the Grindstone. I think we'll bin off the Grindstone. So we just play out the Urza Saga on 1 and try and pop it on 3. I think that seems like a fair enough thing to do. This is going to make our opponents think we're... Okay, Vault of Whispers. Okay, our opponent is not playing a fair deck if they're playing Vault of Whispers into Thoughtseize. They're probably playing that Tony Scapone Mono Black Storm list that he's been having a bit of joy with lately, that we've already seen today. Okay, so we've lost our Painted Servant. Sure. So we have 2 choices here. I think we're supposed to play out the Ingenious Smith here because it's the scalable threat and it can find us a painter, but it can also find us a bunch of other stuff. Pithing Needle here can be put onto Wishclaw Talisman, which we can then Oswald Fiddlebender away. So I think we want the Pithing Needle here. Now we could just play a Saga game, but I've put my opponent on being a combo deck, so I don't want to try and play a Saga game against someone who's going to be comboing us. 2 Vault of Whispers and a Mistress Ball. It definitely looks like that deck. Lion's Eye Diamond, so he might just be dead this turn anyway. Another Lion's Eye Diamond. Cabal Ritual, that's 3 mana. So this is Wishclaw Talisman. Infernal Tutor, sure. So they're going to put a Peer into the Abyss? No? It might just be a good old-fashioned Ad Nauseam. Sure. So this can miss still. They can... we're looking at the wrong pile here. It's the revealed one we're going to see, isn't it? So this can not take them there. Let's have a look. Okay, so they found the Lion's Eye Diamond. So this line should be lethal now. What are they still going for? They didn't need those extra cards, right? Because they already had Infernal Tutor, Lion's Eye Diamond. Because they did that, I'm going to let them play it out and see what they get to. Yep, so there's a Lion's Eye Diamond. There's a Wishclaw Talisman. So they've got Lethal Storm now, so they use this, go and find Tendrils, shoot us with Tendrils. They crack the Lion's Eye Diamond. They did not crack the Lion's Eye Diamond on the stack, so they don't need to. So, yeah, sure. That's us done. All right, so same board plan as we had before. So we want some Deafening Silences in there. These much otherworldly lights, so when they play out stuff and pass. This also can blow up artifact lands, which is quite nice. The Aether Vials were bad, so we won't get rid of those. Saga Lantern cantrips, but I don't think it's good enough here. The Mother of Runes not doing a great amount of work, so that's 4. If we want any more answers to the Urza Saga tokens, we probably want to board out a couple of Mother of Runes for those, because at the end of the day I don't think we need to worry about them. That's 60, so we've got 3 plows, 2 March for the Holy Lights, 2 Deafening Silence. We have the Ensnaring Bridge which you can find if we need to. We have a Crucible of Worlds, so we can wasteland them out of the game and just keep their mana restricted as best we can. I think that's fine. Like, I'm not a massive lover of Crucible in this matchup at all, but I think it's probably slightly better than the Mother of Runes at the end of the day. So if we get a second turn, we can deploy the Canonist, and that can stop them from comboing off. So I think we can just about keep this. I don't think we should mulligan to Deafening Silence. We only have 2 in our deck. We've got a turn 2 effective Deafening Silence. This still lets them spam a load of artifact so they can make bigger Urza Sagas, but we've got a plow for that, so that should be okay. We'll keep the Ancient Den in hand because we want to save that to pump the Ingenious Smith for free at some point. So we need to not get Thoughtseize this turn. We can get to rest. That's fine. Pithing Needle. This is probably going to name Grindstone. Grindstone, yep, sure. That's fine. We're not really trying to win that way. Okay, so we're going to play this Saga out so we can just get the beatdown going as quick as possible. So our next 2 turns are make Urza Saga tokens. So we can play the Ancient Den next turn anyway, so we may as well just play basic planes. So our opponent playing Opposition Agent. They could Dark Ritual into it, but that's 2 cards for them, so and they can't do it actually because of the Ethersworn Canonist, right? Sure. I know what my cards do, right? Okay. So I guess we don't actually have to play that fast in this matchup because what it is. Wishclaw Talisman. Okay. So the bigger our creatures are, the harder it's going to be for our opponent to do an ad nauseum line. So this is going to make a token here. This is going to get us Pithing Needle. Just going to name Wishclaw Talisman. So we have 2 choices here. So if we attack for 6, 7, 8 this turn, then we have them dead next turn. If we attack for just 5, 6, 7, they go to 11 and they're dead next turn. So we kind of have them coming and going however we play this. So I think we just play out this and the Sentinel. It attacks. And they have lethal next turn anyway. And we can play the Ingenious Smith in case they have some way of killing our guys. Now we could have got 1 more point of damage in, which might be relevant with a ad nauseum line. But our opponent is unable to put an ad nauseum on the stack right now due to the Ethersworn Canonist. Okay. So that worked. A-okay. Now we have to do the same thing but on the draw, which is difficult. But our opponent isn't so much of a turn 1 combo deck. But they can poke a hole in what we're doing with discard. Alright, I think we resubmit. Is a turn 3 Canonist good enough? Is the question. Now we can wasteland our opponent, we can portable hole anything they put into play. And then we can wasteland lock them. I think this is just about good enough. Because they're not like an Echo Vion's deck, it means that if they mulligan low, it's not actually that bad. I mean, it's not actually great for them. Whereas an Echo deck can just mulligan to 2 cards and be totally fine. Okay, so taking our thing that stops the combo. An Ingenious Smith. So I think we just play out probably the Wasteland here, just in case we need to hit something. I am not expecting to win this game. A Grindstone. Interesting. In this turn, we play out the Ingenious Smith. The opponent doesn't appear to have anything going on over there. So play this out. We'll play this one out because this provides a clock. And I won't play out the Grindstone this turn because we can't combo off, although would I rather have it in hand? I think I'd rather just have it as points of damage potentially. Whereas this attacks for 1 point of power. Next turn we can play this to deal 1 damage, or we can play the Ancient Den to deal 1 damage by pumping our Ingenious Smith. A second swamp. Okay, our Wasteland's not looking great there. A source to Plowshares. So what do we actually want to play here? I think we want to play out the Grindstone, which means we're tapping this, and then we're playing out this Wasteland. Just trying to get our opponent as low as possible. We might be able to plow our guy if they do like a Tendrils for Exact Seize, which is not really where I want to be, but it's an option we might have. And Haywire Might. So this can blow up the Grindstone, or it can blow up our Ancient Den. Do we want to kill this Haywire Might now? I think we probably do. Just puts our opponent to 8, which makes ad nauseam lines difficult. Next time we can play Crucible. We can also start Wasteland in our Ancient Dens and replaying them so that we can keep pumping our guy. Okay, they're just packing it in. So we got lucky in that game, to be honest. Our opponent kept a hand. I obviously didn't know what they had. Maybe they were just looking for like one tiny piece to get there. But yeah, we got a bit lucky there. Normally these turn 1 combo decks are not what we want to face, but we've faced the same deck twice and beat them. I say turn 1, they're like turn 2 or 3 combo decks for the most part. But yeah, okay, we're 3-0, so let's keep on trucking. Right, so we have a turn 3 kill. We also have a Mother of Runes if we want to go a little bit slower. I think we can keep this. Our opponent's on the play though, so we'll see what they play and see if it affects. That was going to dictate the order we play our things out, I believe. An island and a ponder. So this could be a whole bunch of different decks. I don't know how slow we need to go. I think playing out a Mother of Runes is the level of speed I would like to go here. Days. Okay, so our opponent is looking more like a Delver deck or some kind of like aggressive Stoneblade list. Okay. I get baited by the basic island all the time from the Delver decks, to be honest. Okay, so we probably want to play out our Esper Sentinel here. So we're probably playing out Urza Saga and then Esper Sentinel. Just plays around the days. So I sometimes get asked what the difference between the white painter and red painter decks are in terms of matchups across the metagame. So generally speaking, the white painter does better against Delver, but a lot worse against Initiative, and the red painter is the other way around. Like, you have sort of some of the D&T white taxi stuff that is generally alright against Delver stuff, and you have plows and things that can answer their big guys. And you can play a Crucible Wasteland game, that sort of thing. Okay, so we're playing out our Esper Sentinel. Next time we can play a Painter's Servant around a days, and then we can play out an Ensnaring Bridge if we need to try and buy ourselves some time as our hand gets towards being empty. There's no point trying to throw down an Ensnaring Bridge until your hand is a size that it's going to make an impact on the board. You can't afford to spend 3 mana not actually impacting the board that turn in Legacy. Okay, our opponent's going to have to pay a tax or give us a card for whatever they do. So 2 mana Ponders feel less bad for us to play against, and they can spend their whole turn Lightning Bolt on our Sentinel if they want. Okay, so they're probably going to wasteland our Saga, which means we might be getting a card here. Or they might just not do anything with their mana, which is certainly an option. They offered us the trade with a Sentinel, a Delver of Secrets. Okay. 4 cards in hand from our opponent. An Ingenious Smith. This one is worth playing out into a potential daze, I think. We need to empty our hand to make this Ensnaring Bridge do something. Like, if they daze it, we draw a card, so we're kind of fine either way. What do we have here? A Shadowspear. I think I'll take the Shadowspear. I think we need the life to make our Ingenious Smith good. We could have attacked with our Sentinel there, but I don't mind taxing our opponent a little bit. But if they're just going to keep making threats, that's going to be less than good for us. There is a bit of a push and pull between Esper Sentinel and Ensnaring Bridge. Our opponent can just give us an extra card every turn cycle to try and get their guys through. Now, it's not so bad for us because we'd be getting an extra card every turn, but if we're trying to not get attacked, that's not really going to work well for us. So we know they've got an island in hand as one of their 5 cards. We know they've got a lightning bolt as one of their. There's the island. There's the lightning bolt. I suspect they're probably going to pay. Yeah, sure. They're targeting the Sentinel. Drawing as a Saga would be great this turn. That's kind of where I would like to get things going. Our basic planes. Because we want to save this, we're playing an artifact this turn anyway. So we're going to play out the Shadowspear here. We're just going to pump our Ingenious Smith. And we're going to equip this to our Ingenious Smith. Buy ourselves a bit of time. So this is a 3-power guy. So if they lightning bolt it next turn, that's going to make us a bit sad. But they have a 1-turn window to do that. So they can play a Murktide this turn if they have a land. They put Force of Will on the bottom. Sure. I imagine they are just digging for the removal spell for our Ingenious Smith. They need one more card type in their graveyard to get Delirium, so Unholy Heat doesn't kill our guy just yet. Okay, so this is the last card type they needed. So Unholy Heat can kill our guy, and their Dragon's Rage Channeler will be a 3-power guy. So we're getting hit for 6 this turn. Or are they keeping... They're not going to keep the Insect Celebration back. Yeah, that's correct. Hit for 6. Do they have the removal spell in hand? This could just be a Murktide, which would be a bit of a problem, but we've got the Ensnaring Bridge for it. Okay. So Daze is the only card they can have in their hand that can interact with us playing the Ensnaring Bridge here. Because they can't... Oh no, they're going to draw a card off the board, aren't they? So they might be able to force it as well. But do we have the choice of playing around that? I'm going to probably go with no. So we're playing the Ensnaring Bridge this turn. I think we're looking at 1, 2, 3. So play this. Pumps our guy, stops us being attacked by the Murktide. Now, they can still attack us with their Insectile Aberration and Dragon's Rage Channeler. And the Dragon's Rage Channeler might well be Delirious this turn, because the Delver deck puts a lot of cards into its graveyard. So it's got 3 types already, it just needs 1 more type. If we need to, we can make a sort of a sacrificial run with our Ingenious Smith to gain some life on the next turn. I'm really hoping he doesn't come to that though. Petty Theft. Okay, so they're just going to bounce our Ensnaring Bridge. They're going to hit us at 8, 9, 10, 11 here. And this isn't going to be lethal. Because oh no, it will be because they put the Murktide in the bin with the Dragon's Rage Channeler. Sure. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we are done here. Sure, sometimes you'll get dealt with. Right, this shuts down a whole bunch of their threats. Source of Plowshares is very good against some of their things. I don't like much of the Leyline here. Some people do, but that's not my jam, to be honest. I don't like the Pithing Needle too much because they're both Wasteland decks, but our Wastelands are pretty good here. So they're going to have Meltdown, so probably don't want this. Portal Hole. The Ensnaring Bridge is fine. Canonist is good. Some of our combo stuff we can probably trim down on. I think we're getting rid of some of our cards that aren't so good on their own. So we trim down on the combo here. And we're just looking at trying to assemble the like Crucible of Worlds lock or something like that. Do I like Hope of Ghirapur here? It's fine. I'm not a giant fan of it, to be honest. Like, it can block a Murktide region, but I'd rather have a Sword of Plowshares from Murktide region. So that's what's being swapped out. The Mother Runes are very good here. We still want to keep 1 portable hold to tutor 4. I'm looking at 1 more cut here. Might be the Mox Opal, just for the purposes of trying to play around Meltdown a little bit. We don't want too many resources that we want to spam out. So this is fine to tutor 4, but if it's in your opening hand, I'd rather not have it in my opening hand at all against Delver. So this is what we're going with. So let's give it a whirl. So we have a hand that dies very hard to Meltdown, but it does shut down their threats. Is this a thing we can keep? I think so. Like, the Esper Sentinel can hopefully buy us some cards along the way and maybe get us into some real mana. So they can Force of Will this, otherwise they can only play a creature on their turn. Hopefully they don't have a creature and they can ponder and give us a card. Next turn, because of Meltdown, we're probably going to play out the Fiddlebender rather than the Canonist. Oh, Wasteland, sure. Okay, that's one less thing to get hit by a Meltdown, I guess, right? So that's something, I suppose. Play this out. Might as well play this out. It can turn into something else, like card-wise. Now, we are showing our opponent we don't have another land here. Also, we do have to exile our Ancient Den here, which is annoying, because we were hoping maybe to do a Crucible line. But we've got a very small clock. We've got a guy that can... Well, he can draw us cards if they're casting non-creatures at least. We have a redraw in our Soulguide Lantern to find a land, but we've shown that we don't have a land, so they might just Wasteland us here. If I were them and I had a Wasteland, I'd be snapping it off gleefully right now. That is not a Wasteland. Is this just going to be a Delver or a DRC? It's a DRC. So it's back to us. So we can draw a card off of our Soulguide Lantern here and to try and hit a land, which I think we have to do. Which is quite the display of weakness, but we don't really have a choice right now. If we don't make land drops, we will not win this game. I don't want to trade off my Esper Sentinel because I'm desperately in need of cards here. And whilst the Leyline of the Void is in play, the Channeler is a lot less scary. It's a 1/1 that fixes their draws for them. But they have to cast spells to do that, and if they're casting spells, they're either paying double the price of a spell because of our Sentinel, or we're drawing a card. Okay, they're just going to lightning bolt this. Sure. So we have a Sentinel to follow up with. But again, we do need to find the land. Let's pop out their exile just so we can see what they've drawn so far. We know how many copies of whatever's left in their deck. Over to us. Okay. We don't really have a choice. We're just casting this and hoping that it resolves. And we're just going to lose this one because we didn't find any land. Okay, our opponent's giving us plenty of time because they don't have a scary threat. But they're going to find Delvers soon, which are their principal threat under a Leyline of the Void. A single Brazen Borrower, though, can bounce this, and then we'll probably die in about 3 turns. So it's not looking good for us. Another Wasteland is going to be lights out as well. Sometimes you keep a 2-lander with a 1-drop and a 2-drop, and you never find another land. Okay, so they dazed us. They scryed a Force of Will into their graveyard. Or sorry, surveilled it into their graveyard. So yeah. I think they're probably just looking for a Wasteland or a Delver at this point. Cantrips, good as well. Yep, so there's a Delver, one of the things I said they were looking for. And because they pondered, this should probably flip on their turn as well. So we're going to die in relatively short order here. As we can start stringing some things together. Probably want to play the Fiddlebender first. That way if we can get a Canonist in play, we can turn it into something else more easily. Possibly a Crucible of Worlds. Short, Force of Will pitching a Brainstorm. Yeah, so this is 4. So this is like a 5-turn clock, but any lightning bolt changes that maths. Another threat also changes the maths, so yeah. Okay, there's another threat, and it's probably going to flip because they brainstormed. So we're going to take 4 this turn, then we're going to take 7 next turn, and then we're going to take 7 the turn after and die. So they've made it a 3-turn clock. Now we could draw things like Plows, we could draw things like... I guess we need to make a Canonist here. I don't think we have the time to not play a Shadowspear. We need to try and get some life back. Okay, I didn't get dazed. We lost the luxury to play around daze a long time ago. Okay, this is going to hit us for 7, and then it kills us next time. So they've got an Unholy Heat in hand, so they're going to kill our one guy that can hold the Shadowspear. Then they're going to attack us for 7, and then next time they're going to attack us for 7 again. We can put a blocker in the way to buy us potentially a turn if they don't lightning bolt us, or deploy any other threat. But I think we're probably going to lose this one. Yep, so here they come in for 7. Now we draw the land. Let's play this guy out. We equip this guy. So if they attack, so they basically can't attack with a DRC this turn. So they can only attack us for 6. So maybe we buy ourselves 1 more turn. Obviously a lightning bolt kills us. And gaining 3 next turn isn't going to be enough to keep us alive either. But it's bought us 1 more draw step. So that could be an Ensnaring Bridge, which is looking like our only out here. If we can stabilise behind the bridge, we'll be... Okay, let's just have a lightning bolt for our face. Yep, that's the game. So I don't mind losing that one. Like, we got pretty lucky to beat the Storm deck twice. So I don't mind the Karma coming back to bite us a little bit here. That's sometimes the way it goes. All right, let's go on to the final round. I think we are 3-1 now. So we've already got our money back. Let's see if we can make it a 4-1. All right, we're on the draw here. Now, I'm not the happiest about our hand. We do have a lot of tools to work with, though. And we're on the draw, so we've got 2 draw steps to find another land. We can turn our Mox Opal into a land relatively elementary. And we also have this Esper Sentinel. This is kind of a marginal keep, but I think it's fine. If this land was a non-basic, I would never keep this. But I think with a basic, we can just about keep this. A lot of swamps today in the league. Unmask, targeting themselves. Okay, so they're making a turn 1 Grizzlebrand, and they're probably going to kill us with it. I think we can go to game 2. Alright, we would like some amount of Leyline of the Void. We have to play these Swords of Plowshares because they have Show and Tell in their deck, so we want to be able to kill the guys when they come down. We want to keep 1 portable hole because our opponent might give us an option to remove and animate dead. So I don't hate the 1 portable hole. It also blows up Serenity, which is sometimes an argument for the March I already like. The Hushbringer stops the Archon of Cruelty trigger, so that's pretty useful at occasions. Crucible of Worlds is not something we need to be messing around with this game. So the Mother of Runes isn't going to do anything in this matchup either. The Canonist can definitely slow our opponent down. Fiddlebender can help find our useful bits and pieces that we require. Do I want this Mox Opal? I don't think so. I don't think that's really what this game is going to be about. We're looking at stopping our opponent more than anything. If we're bringing in Hushbringers, we're probably bringing out some Ingenious Smiths. Probably can board down on a couple of those and maybe a Painter. Just try and get them this way. I think that'll do. I will not keep a hand that doesn't have a Leyline in. This one does have a Leyline in, so I will keep it. And I will Wasteland the bejesus out of our opponent, given the opportunity. I will play out this because our opponent might have some discard. Next turn, we Wasteland our opponent if they play a land. If they play a land, we can Wasteland, that is. They might play a fetch land. Unmasked targeting us. Sure. Let's see what they've exiled. An Exhume. They've taken our Canonist. So that's our way of pressuring our opponent's life total gone. Okay, so we play out this Sentinel. That way, if they play a Serenity, whilst this will die, we'll draw a card next turn. We also have the Wasteland rather than one of our Ancient Dens because of Serenity. Appaloosa Delta. Looks like they're cracking them. A Badlands. A Scrubland. Okay, so this is a Serenity play. Sure. Not incredible for us, but we do get to Wasteland them off of all their lands. So maybe that's the thing that's going to be useful. A one-off Portable Hole would have been nice, but... Attack our opponent. Goodbye Badlands. Goodbye Scrubland. And then we all lose all our permanents. Well, not true. I'm left with the plains. So there is that. Generally speaking, if your Reanimator keeps on 7, you're going to lose the game most of the time. Faith is Looting. What do they put in their graveyard? An Archon of Cruelty. They've got a Grief. Who are they targeting? Us. Okay. Swing and a miss, I'm afraid. Down to one card in hand, which I imagine is probably like a Reanimate or something. So this would be a great turn to find Soulguide Lantern or something. We can play out our Urza Saga. We have a question. Do we play out the Painted Servant? If they play a... if they reanimate their Archon of Cruelty this turn, that's going to look pretty bad. We don't need the Painted Servant for another turn. If they discard a card from our hand, that's bad. But I think, considering they've just used a Grief, we're better off protecting it from potential Archon of Cruelty. Yeah, so there's the reanimate on this guy. We lose one of our Ancient Dens. This is going to be very hard to assemble what we need to assemble here. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. So the Archon of Cruelty can no longer attack us. So it cannot trigger. So next turn we get our Urza Saga into a Grindstone. So we need one more mana. And we can combo our opponent. Alright. If we're playing the... We can't afford to get a creature here. So if we make a creature here, we can't play the Painted Servant this turn. Our opponent might discard out of our hand. So we're just on the Urza Saga here. Go and get ourselves a Grindstone. Play this guy. Do I think our opponent's playing Snuff Out? Probably not. We'll play this one. And we'll say go. There's a Lotus Petal from our opponent. And they're flashing back Faith is Looting, which is good for us. Means they don't have an immediate answer. Okay, so we got game 2 that way. Excellent. So, do we want to do anything different? Do we want something like March I already like to deal with a Serenity potentially? Is that a viable strategy? Is it better than some of the other things we're bringing to the table? Is the other question. Probably we're doing the Shadowspear, so we can have a march in for a Shadowspear. The Hope of Ghirapur can buy us a turn in some situations. We already mentioned the Portable Hole as a thing we can tutor for with Oswald. I think we can just have the one march there, and that's about it. This is an unkeepable hand. It has no mana sources. They are keeping their hand. I don't think we can keep this. I think we just have to mulligan for the Leyline here. Keep this. So, put 4 cards on the bottom. So, we get rid of a Canonist and a Fiddlebender. And I kind of want the Portable Hole for the Serenity, so I'm going to bottom the Wasteland. Oh no, we still have to put another card, don't we? So it's the Sentinel here. I think we still play this out. Our plan is to Portable Hole the Serenity, if they have it. which I imagine they probably do because they kept quite quickly. They either have that or the show and tell. Okay, looks like they've got Serenity if they're cracking these lands now. Either that or they're going to be doing... Okay, definitely got Serenity here. So we might be okay. We've certainly put ourselves in a position to win this game. We just need to draw some more mana before our opponent can blow up our portal hole. Or show and tell. Okay, that's not a blue source. We need more mana. So we keep going. Another Serenity. Yikes. Okay, so much of Otherworldly Light? Not much of Otherworldly Light. So we are going to lose this game, I think. But we put up a pretty good fight for a mull to 3. My things, they are gone. Hopefully they forget about their Serenity and play a Reanimate Dead. Sorry, an Animate Dead. That would be glorious. They're just hard casting a Grief, sure. That's pretty weak as plays go, so I don't mind that too much. We're probably losing the Painter's Servant because that represents the way that we can win the game from underneath them. Oh, they're taking the Hushbringer. Interesting. Maybe they're just on the play Griefs every turn strategy. Leyline on the Void. That doesn't do anything. I got Show and Tell here. Just unmasking. Taking our Painter's Servant. Now we can top deck a Plow, and that buys us a decent amount of time. An Ancient Den. Okay, we'll play out the spells we have because that's all we have. If we find another guy, we can double block the Grief. And if it's a 2-2 guy, we can just trade 1 for 1 with the Grief. Now, our opponent has a lot of their resources up and running here, so... Entomb. Okay, so we might just be getting hit by an Archon of Cruelty this turn. A Griselbrand. Good turn to draw a Soulguide Lantern, perhaps. We did not draw a Soulguide Lantern. They've played 2 Serenity, so if we get another turn, we can get a Ensnaring Bridge and try and turtle up behind it. I think that's better than trying to do the double block here. I don't think our opponent has Opposition Agent. That'd be a wild thing to see out of one of these decks. So we have a choice here. We can go and get ourselves a Soulguide Lantern to get rid of this Griselbrand. Or we can go and get the Ensnaring Bridge. I think we get the Soulguide Lantern here. So this covers their graveyard. We take 3 again, and then we can put an Ensnaring Bridge into play. Show and Tell. A Griselbrand. Okay. So, what are we doing here? I think it just has to be the Ensnaring Bridge. I don't think we have a choice. We can sack the Soulguide Lantern to try and draw a Pithing Needle. Is that worth doing? Our portable hole's already gone, so that's a bit of an issue. I think we're supposed to try and draw a card off the Soulguide Lantern. And a Eiganjo. We've already played our land for turn. Sure, that's fine. Not fine, but it's something. So our opponent can draw a bunch of cards here. They can play a Serenity here, which would be pretty bad news for us. But we've already seen 2 of them, so hopefully they're right at the bottom of their deck. Another Show and Tell can be a little bit annoying for us too. I've drawn 7 more cards. Let's see, keep an eye on what they've been putting in their graveyard here. Another Faith is Looting, so they're still digging for the Serenity. They could have Wear Tear in their deck as well. But they won't have any red mana to hit our Ensnaring Bridge this turn. Will they think about Thought Seizing us? Please Thought Seize us. That would be lovely. I would love you to deal yourself 2 damage. A Dark Ritual. Okay. Are they just going to... Oh, okay. Just playing a Grief. Sure. I thought they were trying to build up for an Archon of Cruelty, which would be bad for us. So they don't hit anything with the Grief. Entomb here. This is just going to thin out their deck for things they don't want to draw. Animate Dead on Hushbringer. Okay, so this is a guy that can attack, but is only a 0-2. Like, they've got so many cards in hand, they're just doing stuff. So we probably want to wasteland our opponent, just in case they only have the 1 scrub land here. I don't think we can afford to make a token here. Not that it's really going to help us anyway. What do we want here? Hope of Ghirapur can potentially give us a block. Grindstone can give us a way of just slowly hitting our opponent's deck here. I don't hate that. Play this one out. So I think we are wastelanding the scrubland here. We have a choice of what we do. I think we just start grindstoning our opponent out. We don't want to play the Sentinel necessarily. Because they can make us draw 2 cards. Do we just grindstone our opponent out here? I think we do. Like, we might be on the natural Grindstone from behind an Ensnaring Bridge with our opponent not being able to cast the Serenity. Unmask. Targeting us. That's good. We didn't want this card in our hand anyway. Gonna be a weird game, this one. We can turn this into a Painted Servant. We can turn it into other stuff as well because we've got the Oswald. So we've got options. A Plains. Okay, our plan now is just the old classic Ensnaring Bridge Grindstone plan. The way this card was intended to be played. A Grief, sure. This doesn't do anything. So if we draw a Painted Servant, we are getting pretty close. Or any 1-drop artifact, we can turn that into a Painted Servant. Animate Dead on the Esper Sentinel. Sure. That's going to be a 0-1. Keep going. Ooh, we hit nicely there. A Painted Servant. Okay, this one is good enough to play. We will name White, I think. We just need to survive one more turn from our opponent, then we get to mill them out. Okay, they didn't have any way of dealing with that. Cool. So, as much as I wanted to get the natural Grindstone out, I think we probably still win that game, even if we don't draw that Painter there, and just naturally grind them out. But I'll certainly take my 4-1. Let's have a look at the deck. So, 4-1, obviously a pretty good record. We lost to a matchup that we normally win in Delver, and then we beat 2 matchups we normally lose in the Mono Black Storm deck. So, kind of like topsy-turvy. So I think 4-1 is probably a fair record for the deck for today. The Aether Vials were pretty bad. Like, they would have been fine against Delver, but they didn't really come up and do anything there. So if we'd have had a third one, maybe that would have been good. Hard to say necessarily. The Ensnaring Bridge was excellent. It flat out won us around. It could have won us around against the... Could have won us games against the Delver player if things had broken a little differently for us, but that's not the case. And what else? The rest of the deck is kind of pretty stock at this point. I think when it comes to the deck at the moment, you're looking at... I think your flex slots that you can play with in this deck are probably these. So these 9 cards. So I've played builds with like Lotus Petals. I think the Aether Vial is better than the Lotus Petals, but I don't think Aether Vial is very good at the moment. I like Pithing Needle. I know some people aren't too hot on Pithing Needle in the deck, but I think it gives you a lot of play that you don't otherwise have. Especially like when we were in the Painter Mirror, you can just kind of say, actually, let's just play a fair game and just grind you down with my Crucibles and Wastelands and Sagas and just get rid of that as an option. So I think the Needle was pretty good there. Personally, the Plow here is just so we can have 4 Plows in our 75. And I think of all these cards, the one that's best to have in the main deck from our sideboard slots is definitely the Plows. So I think having 1 Plow, it also complements the other 2 removal spells we got there. I like the 2 Portable Holes main deck, but I do think they come out a little bit. Horizon Canopy, I know some people play the Eiganjo Castle, which can prevent damage on the Oswald Fiddlebender or on the Hope of Ghirapur. I think the Hope of Ghirapur is great. I don't think I want 2. I've played lists with 2. I think 1 is the right number. And yeah, that's more or less it for the flex slot. Like the Mox Opal, sometimes you want to go and get a mana. So I understand that. I'm kind of tempted to replace this with like another utility land instead. Like, again, it is nice to have it, but sometimes you just need to draw lands, and Mox Opal might not operate as a land sometimes for you. And it's obviously pretty bad against the Meltdown. It's one of those cards that sort of kind of goes in and out of my list. And like I said, I have this in foil in paper, and I have the Masterpiece Mox Opal, so it kind of stays in my deck quite a bit because of that. But maybe, I don't know, maybe that's somewhere we can look to trim. I'm definitely not going to be trimming the Ensnaring Bridge. That was excellent today. I love Horizon Canopy. I want to keep that. I think the second Portal Hold is pretty decent. I like these 2. So for me personally, these are the only cards I'd look at. And I think this is a meta call with the Vials. I think the meta being the way it is at the moment, I don't think I want the Vials. I think having 1 as a tutor target with as a Saga is pretty good, actually. But because there's so little control, I don't know if Vial is where we want to be right now. So maybe we can free up some more sideboard slots and allow us to play more March for the Body Light, perhaps, which I really like. I think the Mox Opal is kind of a necessary evil right now. This needs to be a mana slot, so it may as well be one that we can tutor for with the Saga. But yeah, I think the deck is very solid. I play it on my channel quite often. I'm a big fan of the deck. I think it's not just like, why are you playing this and not playing Red Painter? I think they both have different spreads of matchups and approach the game in different manners that mean that they are both pretty strong at what they do, even though those things are quite different at times. Like, there's also the Strawberry Shortcake build, which is red-white, which is different again to Mono Red Painter and White Painter. It doesn't play like either of those decks. It plays like its own thing. And sometimes has Fiddlebender in as well, but it's more like a turbo deck, and seeing things like Lion's Eye Diamond in it isn't really a shocker. Lion's Eye Diamond is another card that I've also thought about that maybe having here, but the only thing it's good with is the trying to activate your Grindstone. I don't know if that's worth it. I guess you can use it for white mana to tinker with an Oswald or something, or activate a Shadowspear, but that's very, very marginal to what it does. We don't have the synergy of pitching things and welding them back in, or casting an Imperial Recruiter or the White Recruiter or whatever, and then cracking in response so you can then cast the thing you immediately find, which, you know, is usually going to be a Magus or whatever if you're on the old Recruiter builds from many moons ago. But yeah, I really like where this deck is at the moment. Trying to work out the last few slots in the deck is always a little bit tricky. Could even be another Horizon Canopy. I don't think you want to play more than one Pain land. So some people I've seen have been playing a single Ancient Tomb, which can obviously help you accelerate out things like Painter, Crucible, Ensnaring Bridge, and just activating your Grindstone quicker. I personally don't like the Ancient Tomb because look at these cards. So we've got all these white pips here that we're trying to cast. We've got all these we've got to use 2 mana spells that Ancient Tomb doesn't help cast. So the amount of time I was finding when I did have Ancient Tombs that I would basically take 1 damage from my Ancient Tomb but not actually get any value out of it. And I think your life total is under threat in this format more than it has been in Legacy for quite a while. So it's certainly not free to play an Ancient Tomb, whereas in the more control-heavy metas that we've had in the past, I think the Ancient Tomb is a lot more justifiable, but not for me right now. Anything else to say about this? If you have any ideas about like extra little silver bullets for these slots, I'd love to hear your suggestions. Obviously, I've been through Gatherer millions of times. Phyrexian Revoker's been in and out in the deck a few times as well. I don't think Ichor Wellspring is good enough because the only thing we're sacking things with is Oswald, and it's not really going to be good enough. Like if you're shooting for a 2-drop, you're probably winning the game or shutting your opponent down with a Canonist or something. But yeah, we got a little bit of room to play with, but not a lot of room to play with, in my opinion. I just got my foil Hushbringers through in the post the other day. I'll post a video of my foiled out version of this deck at some point for you all, because it's a thing of beauty, as this deck very much is. All right, we are done for today. If you enjoyed watching this one, why not like, comment, and subscribe? These things cost you nothing, but they really help me out. And if you want to go that extra step to supporting me, what you can do is you can post my videos on sites like Reddit, because I don't really use Reddit at all. So if you can post that on places that I don't go, that'd be really helpful to sort of get me some new followers, and maybe try and push to get me monetized by the end of February would be nice. I think that's very optimistic of me, but it's possible. So if you could help me do that, that'd be great. I suspect we're looking more at like end of March, but with your help, maybe we can speed that up. All right. Thank you very much for watching yet another one of my Mono White Painter videos. I think this week of leagues has been pretty good. I think we've had 3 4-1s in the week. So not bad at all. Right. Thank you and goodbye.